That Great Business Show, Ireland's best business podcast.
ThatGreatBusinessShow.com is brought to you by De Facto Shaving Oil, the best anyone can get. Made in Ireland, sold worldwide.
Welcome to episode 117 of That Great Business Show, Ireland's best business podcasts, posting on the 9th of December 2022. Fáilteasteach, I am Conal O'Moran. Yes, you call this Ireland's best business podcast, and with good reason. That's because we bring you the best business insights, like on our last episode 116, when we told you how you could have Ireland rugby star Ross Byrne and his mates around for dinner because he has made a business out of that. And coming up on E117, as we call it, diversity and inclusion can add to your bottom line. And if you didn't know that, wait till you hear the Inclusio story. And we also have a company that makes sure your research and development spend is not being wasted. And the same team knows where the R&D funding treasure is buried. Stay tuned, as they say. I keep saying we because, once again, I am delighted to be joined by my co-host, the former presenter of News Talk's Business Breakfast, Vincent Wall. As usual, his job is to ask the intelligent questions while I stick to the inane. And here's an inane question for you, Vincent. You know, all of these companies that we will be chatting to and have spoken to in the past, the level of entrepreneurship, the level of brilliant thinking that we now see through the Enterprise Ireland companies, through the Leos and all, it's incredible compared. We won't go back how far, but you and I have been broadcasting about business for a while.
Yeah.
The world has changed.
It's changed hugely, and I don't know what one factor it is, Conal. I mean, you know, when you and I left school, which, you know, was, let's say, just into the third quarter of the...
just say a while ago.
A while ago. I mean, you know, there was still very much the pressure there to get a permanent pensionable job. There weren't that many jobs around anyway. It was a different time. But... you know, people will... we have two amazing guests coming on here. One of them, a woman who was 20 years working in different telecoms businesses. She told us that she always delivered and innovated within those large organisations and found new revenue streams for them. But, you know, at a certain stage of her life, she just jumped and said, I want to do this myself. The other guy, Dave, was about to go on and do further education, and he said, no, I'm going to join my father and start a new business. So at every age, the thing is changing. I think it's a whole mixture of things. I think as people have travelled a lot more than in our time, so they see that we're as good as anybody else and our ideas are as good as anybody else. I think the support networks are there, Enterprise Ireland and others, Seed Capital, Angel Capital. I think more people are prepared to invest and take the risk to support businesses where they think there's a good story. And I suppose education, we've just, you know, there's a whole lot of areas. But in the end, somebody still has got to jump and take a risk.
And there is that thing in, I think it may be in the Irish culture, and I mean that in the broadest sense, of the scratch to do it yourself. That I don't think we're made to work for other people, is that we have this burning desire to do it ourselves.
Well, I've worked for people... I've worked for other people through most of my life, and I could see all the advantages of doing it yourself. You have to have a certain mindset too, though. The great thing about modern Ireland is that more and more people have that mindset, that even though they can see a lot of the risks involved, they're still prepared to do it.
And is the begrudgery culture gone?
Almost.
Yeah.
I think you'll still find corners of it.
I keep seeing it being written about, and I say, no, not really. If you hang around entrepreneur types, it's a different view.
I think most people now, and Irish society has changed so much, most people now absolutely appreciate people who not only take a risk, but also take the risk of employing other people.
Yeah.
You know, that they put other people almost ahead of themselves in terms of the chain of responsibility. I think most reasonable people in Ireland now see those people really as heroes.
1 million people working in SMEs, 250,000 SMEs, aren't they the numbers?
Yeah.
I love it. Anyway, all of today's great business tips and insights are brought to you by De Facto Shaving Oil made in Mayo. sold worldwide.
De facto shaving oil, the ideal gift. One bottle lasts a year and they'll think of you every day.
That's another great business, of course, is based in Mayo, selling shaving oil to the world. It's gifting time. And de facto, the world's best shaving oil is this year's must-have gift. But of course, you knew that anyway, Vincent, didn't you? It's the ideal stocking filler. One bottle can last a year. So buy it now on defactoshave.com and see you next Christmas. See what I did there?
Very good.
That's very good. LinkedIn's clever little algorithm recognizes when you repost. So if you want to become more visible on LinkedIn, and that's a good thing for your business and or for your job prospects, do a repost this podcast, please.
De facto shaving oil, the world's best shaving oil. Made in Mayo, sold worldwide.
Want to increase sales, reduce overheads, and provide customers with a better service? Then use Big Red Web, the easiest way to develop and maintain your website. It gives you powerful business reporting, digital marketing, and automatically integrates with the award-winning Big Red cloud accounting software. It's a game changer for SME businesses. It's so good, the government gives you a €2,500 grant towards it. Big Red Web, e-commerce made simple. BigRedCloud.com/web.
Thinking of travel? If so, make sure to make De Facto, the world's best shaving oil, your choice of travel companion. A 25 millilitre bottle of De Facto means no hassle at airports, no bulky cans to carry, and the guarantee of the world's best shave. DeFactoShave.com.
All that great business show advertisers are Team GBS approved. Back them.
Sandra Healy is founder of an Enterprise Ireland-backed company called Inclusio. Sandra's business, founded in 2016, helps companies with their diversity and inclusion aims and policies, hence the name Inclusio. And why? Well, Sandra's here to tell us that upping diversity and inclusion and counting it correctly is great for business. Welcome to That Great Business Show, Sandra Healy.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here today and looking forward to our discussion.
And one of the reasons that you are here is because Vincent Wall swears by you. He is your biggest fan?
Yeah, well, I don't know how many other fans you have, but I certainly have. To put this into a bit of context, I interviewed Sandra and some of her colleagues for Inclusio for an Enterprise Ireland webinar a couple of months ago, and I just thought she was fantastic. And she's a great talker, which is always wonderful for podcasts. But I suppose the first question I'd ask is, your experience has been, over 20 years in the telecom sector. So where did this idea come from?
Yeah, that's right. So I spent 20 years in the telecoms industry working across the UK and Ireland, and my background is actually technical engineering, and then I moved into pre-sales consulting and then eventually into senior roles in sales and customer delivery. And Vodafone was actually the last tech company that I worked in before I went into Dublin City University. My academic background is organisational psychology, and I've been involved in diversity and inclusion for about 16 years. So it's the combination of all of those things that brought Inclusio into my mind. So the idea came to me when I was in Vodafone, and I realised I had really clear KPIs on one part of the work I was doing around sales and customer delivery and customer experience. And I was doing this very meaningful work in diversity and inclusion with no way to evidence the impact of the work I was doing to the business. And at the same time, I was learning about all the science behind people in work and, you know, how do you bring a scientific approach to measuring and building an inclusive culture? And that got me thinking. So back in 2016, I took the brave move. It was myself and 10 slides. I handed my notice in Vodafone and I said, right, I'm going to go and build this technology platform and solve a problem for D&I practitioners and companies across the globe.
And I presume that when you are trying to prove to people, because you've just said it, that this is a good idea, they look at the bottom line and say, yeah, this is going to add to profitability, or what do they actually look for?
Yeah, I think there's a few kind of key challenges for every organisation. And I don't think, there's new challenges today, right, around managing hybrid workforces and things like that. But I think the core challenges are there, and have always been there, around productivity, talent attraction and retention are always some, really key points. And then how do we develop our people and keep them in the organisation and create a culture where when people come in, they feel that they belong, they feel they want to be part of the organisation. And that can be the biggest challenge, because if you have no way to measure that, and the larger the organisation, the more complex it is for you to actually get a sense of what's really going on across the organisation. And that's where you need to apply technology. So, like I was talking to an organisation this morning, a huge company, they have about 6,000 employees, and they're talking about they think they're doing all these really good things in diversity and inclusion, but they don't know. Are they having the right impact? Are we doing the right things? And they're at it for 3 years and they're still having the same problems. How do we measure productivity? How do we know, we still have the same problem with people, coming in and leaving the organisation? That hits the bottom line.
Hang on now, Sandra. I mean, I've worked for large organisations in my time, and, what happened to the old staff survey? Well, you send out surveys and you basically, anonymised or not, they basically tell you what they think of the company, don't they?
Well, they do. And when I think about back in 2016, before we wrote one line of code, we did deep dive research with over 35 global organisations, because we wanted to get a sense of, right, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? And when we spoke to the organisations, they said to us, there's, 2 key challenges we have here. One, we don't know who we have in the organisation. And, we strive to be reflective of the customers and the communities we serve, but yet we don't know who we have from a diversity perspective. So it's very difficult for us to focus our hiring efforts. And the second thing they said is, we think we're doing all these really good things to create this inclusive culture, but we actually don't know if what we're doing is having the right impact. And then we spoke to the people in the organisation. And they said to us, we do not like disclosing personal things about ourselves and having that attached to our HR records. And we do have staff surveys, we do have internal reporting mechanisms, but we don't trust the confidentiality of them. So therefore, we either take part and, probably not give exactly what we want to say, or we don't take part, or else sometimes we might just leave.
I kind of knew that was the answer, actually.
But does that mean that Inclusio was doing something different to that, particularly around the anonymization? Did I say that? I better put my teeth back in again. About the anonymity around the whole reply.
Yeah, so the way we architected and built the system is very much, we set out to solve those problems, the problem for the organisation and at the same time for the employees. So what we've done is we use behavioural science nudge. Short interactions over time, we know are more likely to encourage behaviour change. We do understand that people don't have a whole load of time. Staff surveys quite often are 50, 80 questions long, right? With Inclusio, 3 to 5 minutes a day over a set period of time. And we capture all the information we need from everything from your diversity profile right the way through to your experience of the culture in the organisation. And we also have nudge learning as well built into the platform.
Talk to me about nudge.
So nudge is that short interaction. So when it comes to behaviour change, we use the word shift rather than solve. And people are more likely to shift their behaviour when you layer up the learning, and it's short interactions and it's reflective. And that's all part of the behavioural science research that we've built into the platform. So you asked, what do we do different? Really important for us that we built a platform that people trust. They trust the confidentiality of it. So very deliberately, our software sits outside the organisation. Employees engage in it on a day-to-day basis, and we aggregate the data into analytics dashboards then for the organisation. So we maintain the confidentiality and the privacy of the individuals, but the organisation gets the rolled up data and the information that they need.
And you mentioned nudge in terms of trying to shift people's behaviour and to take part in this, Sandra. But you also mentioned that there's elements of psychology and artificial intelligence in your software. How does that work, and what's the purpose of that?
Yeah, so we've built, and essentially this was part of that 4 years in research and development, we've built an ethical AI engine. That's how we describe it, as ethical AI. I get asked that question, how do we know it's ethical? Because we work outside the platform, and then we build the decision making into the platform to make sure that it is ethical, that the AI is not making incorrect assumptions or decisions about people. Now, that's the slow way to build your technology, but it is the ethical way. It's the way we do it, and we can maintain and stand over that, the ethical AI engine. So we developed the algorithms within in the university. So we describe what we've done is we've combined technology, psychology and artificial intelligence, and we've brought all of that together to bring a scientific evidence-based approach to measuring diversity, inclusion and culture.
rude people like me would say about the business, it's all, it could be seen as fluff and populist and. But you've got a right little business behind this. You have gone, not just in Ireland, but you've gone international with this in a big way.
We have, and like some people think diversity and inclusion is not for them or about them. And diversity and inclusion is about all of us. Each one of us is individually different. I don't think there's any one human in the world that can say that they haven't hit some kind of speed bump throughout their working life. It could be a sick parent, it could be a marriage breakup. There's lots of different things that can happen to people. It could be personal mental health. And what you want is, for all of us, that we have a workplace that we can go in and in a psychologically safe way, we feel we can go in and ask for the support we need at any stage of our lives. And that's all of us. That's not just one particular group of people. We also want to be able to be ourselves and bring the different aspects of ourselves to work and not feel like we have to go in and pretend to be somebody else or hide aspects of us. And that is certainly not the best way to get the best out of your people.
And this has been, sorry, Vincent, this has now built you a big and growing business. Talk to me about the business itself. What size is it now?
Well, when we spun out of the university, the 1st of December, actually, so we've just passed our second year anniversary. We spun out of
the university was DCU.
The university, I should have said that, yeah. We just actually got an award from them there last Monday. We were delighted. So we spun out of Dublin City University on the 1st of December 2020 into a COVID world. It was very interesting, straight into our investment raising at that point. And we had 4 people. And I just had an all-hands call today, and we have 37 people in the organisation now. And this time last year, we were at 20 people. And we're actively hiring now. I would say in the next 6 months, we'll be up to about 50.
What are you hiring?
We're hiring business development. We're hiring sales. We're looking for business development people in Canada, the UK market as well, and partner managers.
And you mentioned funding, because you have been funding for a while now, and you've done exceptionally well.
I have, and that's under wraps at the moment.
It's a leading question, I think. Yeah.
It's a leading question. Yeah, we have done exceptionally well, and I think it's the foresight of our investors that they have backed us. We've brought something to the world that's very unique.
And you are right, it's to the world.
It is to the world. Like we set out to solve a problem and a challenge for global employers. We engaged with global employers, and we've built a solution that works in any environment for any organisation. And in fact, we have a partnership now in Canada where we will roll it out in the Canadian market with a partner there. And that's the plan, direct sales and partnerships across the world to roll it out.
And I always ask this question, why Canada? Because, you have to choose somewhere. Why did you choose Canada?
Well, that's an interesting one. Canada chose us. So I'm sure they wouldn't mind me saying KPMG in Canada invited us to pitch Inclusio to them at the beginning of this year. And we didn't know why they asked, but they did. And essentially what we found out is that they did an evaluation of 26 different platforms because their customers were looking for diversity and inclusion analytics. And they came to us at the end and they said, Sandra, there's nothing like Inclusio out there in the world. We've evaluated the best and there's nothing like what you do. And they said, let's get into partnership. So that's what we've done.
Good for you. That is tremendous. That's a real thumbs up, isn't it?
It is. We're delighted with that, yeah.
Looking at the customer base that you've publicised, I'm sure there are customers there that perhaps you haven't told us about, Sandra. There seems to be a lot of insurance companies, financial services companies. Is that by design, or is that just the way it's emerged?
It's a little bit of both, I would say. Like we did a lot of work in our research because we wanted to set out to solve challenges for organisations, and financial services. Most financial services companies now have some kind of mandatory reporting into the regulators around culture and diversity and inclusion. And in Ireland in particular, which is great that we're leading in Europe in this case. We started with the banks in 2018, and then the thematic assessment, then the Central Bank of Ireland undertook that for the insurance companies in 2019. So what we've done, Vincent, is we have 7 insurance companies now all together. So it's an industry industry-led approach to responding to the regulator. So for me, that's excellent.
So you've arrived just at the right time in terms of the regulatory requirements.
Yeah. And we've created, it's called Voice, so valuing openness, inclusive culture and equity in insurance. And it's a business-led approach. So we have stakeholders and key leaders from each one of those organisations have come together to create and develop and agree the benchmarks for the sector around diversity and inclusion.
How low will you go? And by that I mean, how small a company can you actually work with or work for?
Yeah, like the smallest license block we would have is 500. And I say that, but we have worked for organisations, and with some of our customers are like 150. Can I just say we have just rolled out Inclusio for Inclusio, which is interesting, right? Because
you're getting to that scale.
We were waiting. It's still, look, what's the compromise when you're a small organisation? The compromise is the maintaining the confidentiality means that you don't get the comparison data. So if you have, like, for example, a 5,000 person organisation or a global organisation, we're able to bring the data back to you and you can compare it by region, by team, by business unit, by functions. When you have a smaller organisation, you don't get that granular level of comparison data. You still get your data, right? But it's rolled up, but you don't get that comparison piece.
Sorry, Vincent, go ahead.
You were talking about, every human being is different and every employee is different. But when we think of diversity, I suppose at the top of our heads, we're thinking of people from different backgrounds, different racial backgrounds, different cultures, different languages. Talk to us, though, about the growing incidence of neurodiversity.
Yeah, so we capture information around neurodiversity and around disability and around accommodations and also people's experiences with accommodations. And remarkably, what we found, like we ask people to self-describe if they're neurodiverse. We also, just to say within the platform, every time we ask a person to disclose some information, there's a learning moment in that, right? So people are learning while they're going through the platform. So we describe neurodiversity so people learn what that is.
So we're talking about like things like ADHD,
dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, things like that. So it's the neurological differences in our brains, right? So that's what we do, is we ask people to self-describe around that. And we have a project working with Professor Lawrence Fung in Stanford University and Dr. Chris McLaughlin in Ulster University. And what we've done is just to look at the data. What have we found with the data that we've captured around neurodiversity? And remarkably, we have found that there are lower levels of belonging for neurodiverse individuals when all other things are the same. Now, that data we've never found that before in the world, right? So now, together with the universities, we're working to try and figure out, well, what's going on there and how can we bring some of that insight and action back into the platform to help employers create that inclusive workplace for neurodiverse individuals.
Two final questions. One is, if you were able to announce a big funding, say in January, would you be able to tell me how many people you are hoping to employ, not the 50 people that you're trying to grow to now? Say, look at a year or 2 years, because you've only just done 2 years and you've grown hugely. What does the next 2 years look like?
Yeah, like our plan, it's seed round funding is where we are at the moment, and our plan now is get the head down over the next 18, 24 months and to get us to Series A. And Series A funding for us is around internationalisation of the platform. So at the moment, we're in English-speaking markets. We're starting to work with some of our clients around translation and localisation for some. But really where we want to be, we're a social impact business. For us, where we want to be is in as many workplaces across the world as we can. And to do that, we need to internationalise the platform. So what we see is, when I look out there, 24 into 25, we're looking at about 125 people as a minimum, and we're looking at tripling the valuation of the business again in that short amount of time, and then bringing on enough investment then to internationalise the platform.
I love ambition. I just love ambition like yours. Final question. Who would you hire in a heartbeat?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Simon Sinek. And when I think about Simon Sinek, he's somebody that I have listened to and read over many, many years. And it's only really over the last couple of years that I realised the similarities between us. And he talks about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And you talk about passion and impact and commitment. That's what we're all about. We're a social impact business. If we want to have impact, we have to be a business. If we want to get into every workplace in the world and build workplaces where people want to work, we need to build a successful business around that. But it is around telling the why. And every single person that works for us is on that personal mission and is committed to being part of having that impact.
Great story. Sandra Healy, founder, Inclusio. Thank you so much for joining us on That Great Business Show.
Thank you.
De facto shaving oil, made only from natural oils. Nothing nasty on your skin.
Want to increase sales, reduce overheads, and provide customers with a better service? Then use Big Red Web, the easiest way to develop and maintain your website. It gives you powerful business reporting, digital marketing, and automatically integrates with the award-winning Big Red cloud accounting software. It's a game changer for SME businesses. It's so good, the government gives you a €2,500 grant towards it. Big Red Web, e-commerce made simple. BigRedCloud.com/web.
ReaDI-Watch is a Nova UCD company looking to change the way companies invest in R&D and innovation. Jerry and Dave Byrne founded the company along with Aisling Kerwin after years of consultancy around R&D investments, R&D team growth, R&D tax credits, and R&D grant funding. And that's the key word. Regular listeners know that we love the F word. That's funding. And there's funding galore for research and development if you know where to look. So who best to ask about that and other R&D issues than Dave Byrne himself? He is CEO of ReaDI-Watch. Dave Byrne, welcome to That Great Business Show.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for having me, Conal.
Well, you're here because we're going to shake you down and find out where the funds are, because you know.
Absolutely.
Is there a lot of money out there?
There's plenty of them. Absolutely.
People say that it's not easy to find or to get at.
For sure. And by our estimations, we see that in Ireland, the UK, Canada and the US, we estimate that around 200,000 companies, they're spending just south of $500 billion each year on R&D and innovation projects. But if you look at the amount of credits that are claimed or grant funds that are drawn down around that investment, it'd be far less. So absolutely, there's a mismatch there and there's a lot to be gained. As
they say, stall the ball. Who's spending $500 billion? Irish companies?
Small to medium enterprises.
In Ireland?
Not just Ireland.
Ah, that's okay. I was going to say $500 billion. That's a lot of money.
Significant amount, yeah. Absolutely.
And where does it all go wrong? You used to say, where did it all go right? Where does it all go wrong for them?
Well, I suppose the reason we founded ReaDI-Watch and the reason that we believe it's going wrong is because in the market today, particularly with commercially active small to medium enterprises, we see that companies aren't yet equipped with the management skills like they have in other business processes, but applied to R&D and innovation. And because of that, if you think about it like an investment, they're not really optimizing those investments like they could be. So if you take a sales process, a HR process, or any other aspect of the business to grow it, and you apply those management practices to R&D, therein lies a lot of the solve. And that's how you can really, I suppose, enable that R&D investment to return for your business. I think the companies, some really good initiatives have come out over the years. I'll talk about Ireland specifically. For example, the Enterprise Ireland Innovation for Growth programs of the past, recently the Innovate Start programs that have come out. These programs help companies to think about innovation in the context of it being a growth pillar. So if you're trying to grow, if you're trying to double your turnover, if you're trying to land into a new market, you have to break the mold. As an SME, you have to be so customer-centric and careful that you're delivering a quality service. It's nearly a different mindset to have. And so when you're focusing on that, and you have to be focused on that, it's nearly a paradox to be thinking about both at the same time. I think that's where a lot of companies, even really commercially successful companies, have built up really strong quality processes. The innovation and the R&D piece then is quite a fuzzy picture compared to that. And I think that's what's blocking a lot of companies. So what we are trying to do is essentially give these senior leaders and R&D teams, or teams of engineers that might be doing R&D as a part of their job, we're trying to give them practical tools on how to deal with both, how to balance both at the same time. And that's really where the trick lies.
So what is your business exactly? So where do you get your pound of flesh?
Exactly. So, we were originally a team of R&D and innovation consultants, as you mentioned in the intro. And basically, we saw the solution as being SaaS, to be able to give companies a platform through which they can build their R&D and innovation function. And so that's what we offer. We're a B2B software as a service company. And basically what we have is a management platform for R&D and innovation, which you can plug into your other systems, you can deal with it separately, and it's a place to capture everything to do with RDI in your company.
Well, so therefore, talk me through a living example. You don't have to name the name, but a typical company that we can identify with and see what the process is.
Yeah, well, I'll name an example, one that we're happy to talk about and talk with. There's a company down in Shannon called Mincon. They're a publicly listed company on the Irish Stock Exchange, and they have
famous for digging a tunnel.
Absolutely,
the drill that took those Chilean miners out.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah. See, we all know them.
Yeah, exactly.
So back to Mincon. Sorry,
Mincon. Yeah, exactly. The claim to fame there. I wasn't involved then, unfortunately, on that innovation. But they are a equipment manufacturer at their core, and they do that for different segments, including mining, construction, and really, really advanced engineering. When we went in and started working with them in the business, they were doing R&D. R&D was happening, but it wasn't necessarily that clearly extracted out as a business function. There's plenty of it, plenty of technological innovations happening, and that's nearly always the case. It's just not being recognized as such. It's nearly if you reframe your mind to think about it. So what we've done there is we've gone in and we've basically implemented an approach that we have on our platform, which we call the core technologies approach. So if you look at a list of the projects that you've done over the last year, and very likely in a lot of companies, in a lot of engineering companies, for example, you might think about those projects in the context of your customers. So we did this job for this company, we did this job for that company, etc., etc. If you reframe that question and you say, well, what core technologies were we advancing? What are the technologies core to our sustained competitive advantage? And what are we actually advancing in those core technologies in the past year? You might be able to slot those projects into a core technology, and then you're building on technology platforms. That's the way the best players are doing it.
And apart from anything else, apart from that's a more efficient way perhaps to run your business and think about running your business, is that necessary to show the kind of innovation you're doing as part of your normal business to access certain types of R&D funding?
That's the trick. So where I like to go first, and that's where I very naturally went in this conversation, is to think about it as a business process, as a big business function, and talk about business value. The grant funding, the R&D tax credits, they're an accelerator of that. And fundamentally, that's where I naturally start the conversation. But absolutely, if you're trying to claim for an R&D tax credit claim, which I'd be happy to get into it, if that's we can get into that for sure on this discussion. If you're trying to claim for R&D tax credits, if you're framing it around that technology development program, that's where a lot of companies get caught out, and that's where the difficulties arise. If you're starting to name your customer projects and claiming R&D tax against them, that's where a lot of the issues start to come up around the R&D tax claim process.
Why?
Because at its core, research and development is about lifting the body of knowledge in a field of science or technology. And undertaking a customer project might include the lifting of body of knowledge, but from start to finish, there's routine elements within that. And that's the trick. It's a difficult thing to extract.
Are you suggesting there, Dave, that for a lot of companies to access R&D credits, the innovation or the technological improvements that they make have to become publicly available to others?
Really good point. If you take the international standards, which is the OECD level standards for innovation and R&D, which have been adopted and adapted by each Department of Finance in these different countries that are incentivizing R&D, two of the criteria on there are the innovative work has to be transferable and reproducible.
Oh.
That's not the case that it has to be transferred or reproduced by another body. You can keep it within your company, absolutely, but you need to have it in such a way that it could be reproduced by yourselves in another criteria. So it's often a question that we get, and the short answer, no, it doesn't have to be released to the public.
And what is ReaDI-Watch doing that others are not doing? And are you bringing it, I think, international, aren't you?
Exactly, yeah. So I suppose where we stand out and the way that we're trying to deal with this in the market is we are in an industry here where a lot of the R&D discussions are very much grant claim and tax claim centric, and that's where people put a lot of their focus. What we're trying to bring into that is an element of order and structure so that the grant claims and the tax claims can become a part of the process and not the process. The analogy that I like to use is, say there was a software platform for investor board meeting updates. It's not about the actual end result of that specific board meeting update that's important. It's the process of getting all of that information together. It's the output from it. And I like to apply that same mindset to the R&D tax claims.
It's
not just
be an
about the tax
engineer.
credits. I'm actually not. I have a degree or a master's in finance. So no, not an engineer.
Well, your mind works like an engineer. Exactly, about it. Filling boxes.
Well, I know Mincon isn't an enormous company, but it's a mid-sized company with strong international dimensions. But you mentioned, companies that have engineering teams or whatever. Like, what about your average Irish SME that has some sort of an innovative product or knows how they might be able to develop that for their own purposes, but there's only 10 people working in the business?
For sure. And that's as credible a case. It's not about the volume of engineers. It's not about the volume of investment. It's about lifting the body of knowledge. And I suppose at its core, to research and develop is human. And you can even have one human that is doing that, given that they're experts in their space. They know what they're doing. They've carved out their niche. What's their secret sauce? That's where you start to have the R&D discussion.
2 final questions, because that's how we do it. One is that you're raising finance. Who, when and how?
For sure, yeah. So ReaDI-Watch, we launched last year, as you mentioned. We're a B2B SaaS platform. We also have a part of our platform which offers functionalities for channel partners, is what we like to call them. So we actually work with R&D tax practices, grant funding agencies, etc., so that they can help their clients using our technology. And so with that 2-pronged go-to-market strategy, we are moving into the Canadian market in 2023.
How?
In terms of the entry to that market is framed around the fact that the RD&I funding landscape is very, very similar. So we're raising funds in order to get over there, scale the traction that we already have, put boots on the ground and really scale into that market alongside the UK, which we're currently playing at.
And are they Dave Byrne's boots or whose boots? Are they? Do you hire somebody to get over there or stay there?
Well, funny you say that. We were trying to debate the best approach. So what I've done for the last 6 weeks, and I'm just back 2 days ago, I actually spent my first 6 week stint over in Toronto, downtown. So I said, start it myself and build it up from the ground up there again.
So you're heading over there, are you?
I have been over for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm back this month and I'm doing a bit of a back and forth job to really start it over there.
How much money do you need to raise?
We're raising 1.2 million and that's a seed raise basically for us.
And whose money would you like to see?
Yeah, we're talking to venture capital firms in Ireland and actually in Canada and a little bit in the UK.
I hope
and
you
also
listened
some
back to,
angel
we
networks.
had Elkstone on episode 99 and I had Playfair Capital on episode 105, or sorry, not 105, 115, I think.
For sure, I was
So
listening.
listen back in.
I was
and Brian
listening.
Caulfield, he's worth having a listen to.
Absolutely.
Brevity is the key. Nobody wants to know more than 10 slides. They just want to find out how much money they're going to make, and then they'll give you as much money as you need. Simple,
Fantastic.
isn't it?
Fantastic. Simple. Simple and easy.
Final question, because we always have, I think that's about 7 questions I asked since I said I was only going to ask you 2 questions. Final question always is, who would Dave Byrne, CEO of ReaDI-Watch, hire in a heartbeat?
Well, thanks for asking. I was thinking about this one.
Phew, you got the email.
In the first instance, I'm very fortunate that I've already hired one. Aisling Kerwin. So she has just been fantastic for us over the years.
And she's very experienced, isn't she?
Innovator. She's experienced. She's coming from the industry. She worked in Kerry Group, leading R&D teams. Fantastic stuff. And the mindset that she, I suppose, adopts every day is just fantastic for me. She coaches me, etc. So that's one that I just said I'd give a shout out to. In terms of who I would hire in a heartbeat, there's a company that we work with called MagrowTec. They're an agri-tech startup, although a little bit later stage. Gary Wickham is the CEO.
Based in Meath?
No, actually, they're based out of Nova UCD as well.
Okay.
Well, I think they might now be moved on to Nexus, the slightly larger space. But Gary Wickham is the CEO. He comes from the world of, I suppose he was working with Henkel Loctite, building out manufacturing plants. He's process driven. And then he went and grew and scaled Stay City Apartment Group, which is a hotel, basically a hotel chain with a slightly different business model. Now he's on to agri-tech, and he's just vision, mission-driven, process-oriented. He's got all that secret sauce going on with him. So he's the one who I'd hire in a heartbeat.
I think we should have Gary Wickham on the show here. He sounds like a very interesting guy. One other person that you forgot to mention that you'd hire, the Da. You better give the Da a mention.
Don't know if I'd hire him again. Only joking. Yes.
That is a fellow called Jerry Byrne.
Yeah, for sure. That's
Professor Dr. Jerry Byrne, is he?
There's a couple of other accolades in there, but I suppose I should mention while I'm on, absolutely, he's been fundamental to everything that we do. He's our Chief Scientific Officer in ReaDI-Watch. He's my dad. We started working together in 2014 in this space, still working together. And he has been an R&D tax credit auditor on the Irish panel of experts. He's been on the Enterprise Ireland grant funding committees. He's been on international committees, and everything he does has just culminated into what we've built here in ReaDI-Watch.
Sounds like a useful fellow to have, all right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
As a father. Dave Byrne of ReaDI-Watch, thank you so much for joining us on That Great Business Show.
Thanks very much to you both.
And that's it from That Great Business Show, episode 117. Do repost us on LinkedIn, and do it now, please. And while you're at it, do send the link on WhatsApp to your besties in business. They will love you for it. And my thanks to Micheál Whelan and Louise O'Connor for telling us all about ReaDI-Watch, and my buddy right beside me, Vincent Wall, a huge thank you to you for asking, as I said, the intelligent questions. And you might come back again soon, will you?
Love to. Where else would you be on a cold December day but in a warm studio?
Well, and turning to our own business, if you would like to advertise with us, give me, Conal O'Moran, a shout on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I'm at Conal OM. That's a kind of a hard one to say, at Conal OM. We record at the Dublin South Podcast Studios, where Lee Brennan, or Bruce to friends, see what I did there, is today's sound engineer. Later on, Neil Horner mixes it all up in post-production. The same team also works for our second podcast series, Ireland's Legal Podcast. That's The Fifth Court, currently number 4 in the podcast charts. We bring podcasting to another level. And if you would like to record a podcast, Peter Rice at the Dublin South Podcast Studios is your man, or chat to me about our producing a lovely podcast for you. All of our great business insights and tips are brought to you, as always, thanks to our sponsor, De Facto Shaving Oil, the world's best all-natural shaving oil. They back us, do back them. DeFactoShave.com is what to look out for online. And don't forget to buy Business Plus magazine, where we now have a regular column all about the podcast. And that's it. From me, Conal O'Moran, Míle buchas for listening, agus slán tamil.